obviously, hybrid working, it can have its challenges, and I can speak personally about that. But Zubin, a question for you, I guess. What measures do you feel can or could be put in place to ensure that those employees that are working from home can still feel connected? I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges we're facing at the moment.
One of the key benefits previously of actually coming into an office was the ease at which connections could be made and relationships being fostered. That's changed quite greatly because many organizations had to suddenly start working remotely and social distance due to the virus outbreak. With that in mind, I think the entire paradigm work has shifted. During the time of uncertainty, where we were physically distancing ourselves from our colleagues and clients, the connections that we've made previously have become more important parts of our lives. It's important that we stay connected and keep talking about how we're feeling, because everyone has gone through different experiences over the last 18 months. And some tips that we've incorporated ourselves were to schedule a virtual coffee or lunch break with colleagues and clients and chat about things that aren't work. And we've carved out times in the diary, similar to how you would previously when you would chat at a printer or in the kitchen while making a cup of tea. It's important to actually schedule that time with your colleagues to maintain those relationships. Bringing in the digital fold, there are a plethora of online platforms that we could use, from video conferencing like we're doing today, to messaging tools that can help you feel connected, no matter where people are. Another initiative we actually trialed was polar opposite to what we used to do when we were going into the offices. On Fridays, everyone used to be casually dressed as they entered different client sites. We actually set up something called Formal Friday, where everyone wears a formal outfit for the day when working from home. It was very tempting to sometimes work in your gym kit or pajamas, and occasionally a Formal Friday was a great excuse to pay attention to what we wore and to help boost our own individual well-beings. As great as technology is for bringing us together, it's actually sometimes a challenge as well to potentially feel overconnected. And that's why it was important that we enable people to set up their own boundaries while working from home, because there were times when schools were off, where children were homeschooling, so individual boundaries and enable people to actually be mindful of those boundaries as well. We encouraged people to take walks during the day, set up a lot of walking challenges, as well as conducting virtual tours from team members' workspaces, or essentially their homes, to get a different personal connection and a view into our colleagues' and clients' lives. We did that very often. We looked at, we got a chance to know our co-workers, spouses, children, roommates, pets. They've all come on the call during the last 15 months or so. And we've embraced that, and it's built new relationships and helped us to stay connected to people that have been working remotely. And we encourage those actions to continue, because there will be that hybrid mix and people will still want that flexibility. But with that flexibility also brings an opportunity to gain some more personal insights to our colleagues and clients.
And it's really interesting to hear you say all that. I think there's certainly things that we can relate to, kind of things that we've done at Bloom and things that other organizations that we work with have implemented. I know, for me personally, and I kind of think about, the office environment, I do miss that kind of day-to-day interaction that you described there, Zubin, about, just being able to have the water cooler moment, the discussion, over a cup of tea, and being absolutely honest about it, the kind of doing that on Teams always felt like it was a bit forced, and you kind of had to plan. It's like planning the fun, isn't it? Like you have to have fun now because it's planned, and that kind of isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. But some really interesting insight there into other ways of doing it. I like the idea of giving people a virtual tour of your office at home, whether that's a bedroom, a dining room, or wherever.
I think when we started, everyone was quizzed out. I remember the copious amounts of quizzes that took place, and we had to find different methods. In the summer, we did encourage a lot of people to do walking challenges or distance challenges, but then we found cyclists had an unfair advantage on runners, so we had to quickly swap that around. But we've always looked and tried to find some innovative ways to maintain that, because the norm will be hybrid working, and a lot more people will be remote. So to try and keep things afresh, actually create a social club to actually think about exploring different opportunities, because no one wants to continuously do quizzes or the repetition of some social activities or forced fun. It's got to be a little bit spontaneous, as it would be when you're beside a water cooler, or if you want to grab a drink or a meal after work. And those are some of the interactions that have been sorely missed.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think I read, actually, I think it's on BBC, I think YouGov had done a poll only yesterday. I think the results were out, and it said that 70% of people surveyed thought that they would never return to the office in the same way that they did before, which seems absolutely right. But Nigel, in terms of this kind of new normal and the hybrid working, what impact have you seen on kind of labour demands and planning as well?
That's I suppose first question is, what do we mean by hybrid working? So that could be when, so what time of the day, what days of the week, are we talking fixed hours, are we talking flexible hours, where is it going to be? We've talked about home, we've talked about the workplace, could be an alternative venue, could be on the beach. I mean, we've got organisations allowing you for a month abroad if you wish to, and you can work from abroad on the beach. But also, it's about full-time staff potentially requesting fewer hours or flexible working, or part-time staff requesting fewer hours or flexible working. We've even come across cases where part-time staff are saying, hey, I don't have to commute any longer. I can get the kids to school. That's great. I'm quite happy to work more hours. So hybrid working means different things to different people. From a management perspective, though, having visibility of who's working when and where is a real cause for concern. And we've had quite a few calls on this. That's further challenged by when you've got individuals requesting personal or personal requests for hybrid work and flexible working. How can a manager make that call and agree to that without visibility of seeing, well, okay, I've got 5 other team members that are coming in on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You've asked to have a Thursday, Friday, but you want to come in the afternoon. And it's almost like a game of Tetris of trying to piece together people's different requests for working time arrangements, different days of the week, different times of the day, and some flexibility around when that's going to be. On top of that, you've got, as a manager, you've got to be able to plan to meet demand, and that itself could change. It could change during the year because you may have things like school terms to deal with, or winter months or holiday seasons. You need to be able to plan ahead for holiday cover, training cover, sickness cover, self-isolation, homeschooling, training, secondments, new starters coming in, and all of that. And it's like, and with the existing staff, it's about maintaining their well-being as well. You've got some people, there's a higher incidence now of presenteeism. So you've got a camp of people who are saying, I'm quite happy to be flexible and work a set number of hours. You've got other people who feel that because they can just switch on the laptop and in the pajamas and start working from 7 in the morning and just carry on all the way through till 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. So you've got people working too many hours. And as a manager, being able to kind of monitor all of that, it's a huge challenge. On top of that, you've also got holiday entitlement. So if you're going from full-time to part-time and you're working different days of the week or different hours in different days, what's a day's holiday now? Do we need to convert it to hours and then have a bank of hours? And as an individual, it's like, well, how can I book my holiday? If a manager's then saying, crikey, I've got 3 requests come through, 1 for a full day and 2 for part days. So this whole thing of a manager having visibility of who's available when and where they're going to be, and also planning ahead for it. So we're seeing these requests come through and looking at surveys through as well for some kind of workforce management system, some kind of IT system, so that it's visible. You have like a desktop, or you have something that's available, so you can actually, as managers, see who's due in today, who's available next week if somebody's off on holiday or puts in a holiday request. If demand changes, who have I got available to call upon, who might be willing to work additional hours and the like. From a management perspective. And then from a staff point of view, I'd like to book my holidays, but I'd like to book them pretty quickly, or I'm out with my mates down the pub, or my kids have asked for a taxi for next Friday. I don't know what hours I'm working. But technology these days, our system allows you to, on a smartphone, you can request holidays, you can request shift swaps, or you can look at your own shift pattern. And something like that that's more immediate, so you don't have to be at your desk in a workplace to do that, or to hand a holiday request slip in physically to your line manager and expect to get a response quickly. So yeah, the management complexities are pretty big.
Yeah, and I think probably we've all experienced that, everyone on the call, and how we've probably all adapted to that kind of flexible way of working. And as you suggest, Nigel, that's kind of very different. It's different for everybody. I can recall fondly probably now, trying to do a maths lesson at lunchtime for my kids, which was probably at the time I was tearing my hair out, but now I probably think, well, actually, that was the world at the time, and that's what we needed to do. So very interesting, but I think I've concluded I'll never be a teacher. Anyway, moving on. I think it's interesting in terms of inclusivity around hybrid working, kind of how that works for everybody. So clearly, Nigel, you've given some views there about kind of how we can manage that and the impact on staff. Zubin, interesting to hear from you perhaps around how we can be inclusive of people with disabilities, ensuring that kind of adequate support's available around kind of accessing information and that sort of thing.
Sure, I'm just going to test if you can still hear me, because my videos are all frozen, so I'm not sure.
No, we've got you.
Okay, perfect. So it's a very good question, and it's probably no surprise that supporting employees with their mental health was the #1 issue that organizations faced during the coronavirus period. How to help employees manage their anxieties about coronavirus in relation to their lives and work, but also providing them with mental health advice, coping strategies, managing staff stress, anxiety, as well as in some instances motivation, because they were confined to a room or their own houses. That was one of the key elements, but we also needed to understand how to support staff with existing disabilities and long-term conditions that had or probably could have been magnified by the crisis. To make an inclusive arrangement, workplace adjustments are so critical for so many disabled people, and with now their homes being the new workplace, there were some serious logistical challenges. We did a survey where the key revealed issues around provision and portability of devices, how to set up their equipment at home if they were on thick clients or dedicated desktop spaces, and previous working, and then still ensuring that effectiveness and availability, because some people didn't have fast functioning broadbands at home, as well as having all the challenges to try and help people who had disabilities. It was the challenge of actually capturing accurate data on who has a disability and reaching out to them in the first place to provide them with support. So the key focus on a practical level was supporting colleagues with assistive technology. We actually launched and helped them roll out to local councils where Zoom was predominantly used, text to speech, so that people could still feel engaged and capture all the messaging that was going on in meetings, helping colleagues actually install video conferencing applications, which became the new norm. We saw a large shift away from Skype to Zoom to Teams and Google Chat as well. Helping out, working out which adjustments, such as assistive technology, specialist chairs, or other equipment could be transported to employees' homes, as well as reviewing routine working hours to be effective working from home. So similar to what you said, some people just had pure challenges with caring for elderly parents or family members, children working from home. So we took all that into consideration to try and be inclusive of people, not just with disabilities, but also people who seek adequate support or additional support to help them to embrace the new norm.
Thank you, Stephen. I think, absolutely right. Actually, understanding what the challenge is was the biggest challenge at the time. Kind of what impacted, technology have on individuals. Even the simple stuff that you described there, the broadband. Well, actually, if your broadband doesn't work, then how are you going to be able to join a Zoom call? Like that was fundamentally at the start. That was bad. But I think I'm interested. I think we've got just a couple more minutes, and I'm just going to hand over to you, Nigel. Kind of a final question. Just got a couple of minutes before we return back to the main room. But what new ways of working can be adopted, which you think will assist with the health and well-being of staff? I'm just kind of interested in your view on that.
Okay. I think, Stephen mentioned there about the mental health, and we've got physical health as well. And then there's that work-life balance. We could look at different patterns of work. So anything to sort of avoid the possible risk of COVID. So people working in bubbles or specific times of day or certain days of the week to attend. That can sort of link in with commuting times or public transport. But the big thing is about asking staff themselves. So looking at surveys, focus groups, feedback from, say, trade union reps, considering one-to-ones, and then actually thinking about flexible working, hybrid working. There could be different things such as self-rostering, asking people for their preferences. So if they're looking for something different, okay, I'll be looking at the length of working day, I'll be looking at different times of the day. And one of the things we can use is the Health and Safety Exec's Fatigue and Risk Index score. That's a means of actually assessing one pattern of work to another. And it's about fatigue, when fatigue kicks in, and also the risk of an incident happening. And ultimately, one thing I picked up on a webinar way in the early days of COVID was that having just one pattern of work on the basis that it's fairness to everybody, actually, it's the wrong thing to do. Because you're treating everybody the same, and you're assuming that everybody's got the same sort of health and well-being concerns, when actually something that's a lot more bespoke, maybe having a suite of different options that people can select, that suits their lifestyle better, suits their health and well-being, medication needs and so forth, is really, really important. And then actually having visibility of when you're going to be working. So when am I working? When may I have to work? And when is definitely my own personal time, and I can actually choose to do something different. And just with that little bit of giving people a little bit of autonomy in terms of maybe doing shift swaps with colleagues, and a simple and a swift way of booking holidays and time off or flexible working. So we've definitely seen a lot more of that coming through.